Hello, and welcome to another episode of Good Fat Life. And I'm really excited about our guest today because I know nothing about what she does, right? And her name is Liesle. So for those of us who grew up at The Sound of Music, I was 8 when it came out, and it was like the biggest, best thing. And I was, as I was saying, when I heard her name, saw this magnificent creature, it was like my firstborn girl will be named Liesle. Well, of course, she pops out, and it's like, no, she's a Kylie. It's funny, but I've never actually met somebody named Liesle.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because my mom, she said, okay, I came up with your name from Phyllis and Lisanne. Those were two of her really, really good friends. And she fooled around with Lisanne and got Liesle. And I questioned that story, but that's her story, and she's sticking to it.
And she's sticking to it. Well, good for her. Well, welcome to Good Fat Life. And your company's name is Agate Core Therapy,
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about how you got your name in a minute. But first, tell me what is the work that you do?
Yes. So I am a physical therapist.
Okay.
My background is generally orthopedics. And then that love of treating runners and being a runner and being injured, we all have our story of how we came to be who we are. And I was a runner in high school, injured, had to see a PT, and they're like, oh, stop running. And if you ask any runner, it's like, you can't tell them to stop. You can't tell them to stop running. That just doesn't make any sense. So I said, I'm going to be a PT. And so I knew that going into undergrad, that's what I was going to be. And then fast forward going through PT school, and then I had children.
4 children. Liesle's got 4 children. And what, ages 4 through 10?
Yeah.
You've got your hands full.
So then I went to the pelvic health world, and because things were different, and I think we just still aren't comfortable talking about those changes because it's just common. They're common changes that happen,
right? But
they're not normal. And I think that that's really important to know the difference between, this is common. A lot of us struggle with these things, but it's not. It shouldn't be. If it's a problem for you, then let's take care of it. There can be solutions.
Okay, so talk more about that. It's what does that even mean?
Yeah, like pelvic health.
Pelvic health, yeah.
Yeah, so it can encompass a lot of different things. So we'll start even at a younger age, talking about maybe painful periods or irregular periods, and saying, is it something that's involving the system of the muscles and the soft tissue? So for someone who might have just heavy cramping, we can think maybe they have endometriosis, which is common, but making sure that we can differentiate, okay, this is going to be these little spots that adhere, and we have these scar tissue that build up, and it becomes painful now to just move and just be. And so that can be at a very young age. So they already have some pain. And so now as women ages, they have those aches and pains for decades, essentially. Until
it just becomes a way of being.
Yeah.
You just assume that that's normal, right? Because, okay, I'm this age now. Or...
Yeah. And then, so we think from a very early age, okay, we can have painful periods. And then now say we are an athletic human, and then we go to do our athletics of jumping, so our gymnasts, or maybe our runners who sprint, and they may have some leaking. It can also go into the conversation of constipation. And so, constipation is one of those things, I don't drink enough water, don't eat enough fiber, my diet sucks. But some of that can still fall into the category of pelvic health. And I like to give this visual of puppy dogs. This is my favorite visual. Is so when puppy dogs are happy, they wag their tails. When puppy dogs are sad, they tuck their tails and they hold that pelvic floor nice and tight. And so now that can't let things out that back passage. And so we want to be happy puppy dogs. And people can associate with puppy dogs.
Right. You can.
So then constipation falls under that. Then we talk about leaking. So if you have any type of urine leakage, so that can be prior to having children or postpartum. And then as we age, if we have children, we can have pressure in our pelvic bowl, and so that would be prolapse. And so again, very common if we have a history of constipation or vaginal delivery. Then we can go into the perimenopause and menopause stages.
What does prolapse actually mean?
Yes.
I've heard that word but I don't really know what it means.
So it means that the organs in the vaginal canal have changed positions. So if we like to visualize, I like to think of it like an arch. So at the top, we have uterus, if we still have our uterus. And then on the front side, we have bladder, back side, we have colon. And so if we have these pressures of bearing down, so maybe just constipation, we'll go with something that everybody can maybe have struggled with at one point or other. We have this pressure that bears down. And so now it's a battle. Is it going to be uterus that drops down, bladder, colon? And again, sometimes it's common to have changes, but we don't want to normalize like, oh yeah, it's okay to have like things in that space.
It shouldn't be.
That shouldn't be. And there's conservative ways to manage it, right? So there's pelvic floor PT. Then if you see a urogynecologist, urologist, midwives, they can provide a pessary that can help give space so the pessary gives support, kind of like a bra, right?
It actually fits up in your body.
Yes.
Okay.
And it gives support. So it lifts everything up like a bra. And then, or there's surgeries that can be done as well. So ultimately, at the end of the day, as a pelvic floor therapist, making sure that individuals know if you have surgery, if you have a pessary, you are in charge of your muscles and you know what to do to provide the support that you need.
That's so interesting, Liesle. It's just because, who knew?
Yeah.
I've never in my life had this kind of a conversation, right? And I've been around a while, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, so you, how did you just even, is there that niche? Is that a niche?
Yeah.
Has it been around for a while?
It has. Decades. But so again, the conversation as far as like how comfortable one is talking about like things like I think there's categories of individuals. So those people who like kiss and tell, and there's people who are like, it's not your business. It's my business, my information. And I think just being able to have that conversation, feeling comfortable that we can have that conversation, and it's more factual. Like, yeah, like I am a female, I am a menstruating female, and I've had 4 children. So there's changes, and knowing that. Okay, cool. But it's been around for decades. And I think now we're starting to feel comfortable about talking about what is common versus what's normal, and that there's options that are still like holistic and alternative.
So I think what you just said is so true. It's like when we were growing up, it was just like, this is just the way it is, right? If you even had the conversation, it was like, that's just the way it is, so live with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say is like, maybe not.
Yeah. There's a PT who said, make sure that you try to not necessarily push your beliefs off on somebody. So, for instance, if I'm like, oh, nobody should ever leak if they jump on a trampoline. But if it doesn't bother that person, then my job is to make sure that they feel supported and being able to do whatever it is that they want to do. So if they want to jump on a trampoline and not have any type of leakage, that's my job. If they want to have like pain-free sex, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, that's my job, is to help give them strategies so that they can do those things and like enjoy it.
Got it. It's so interesting. Wow. Who knew? We were talking about sex today.
I know. That's probably one of my favorite things to treat because we don't talk about it. Because we still like to keep things like private, but I still want people to feel comfortable knowing that there's options that exist. And if they're ready, then we can explore those options. And if they're like, not ready quite yet, then okay, that's fine.
So that's kind of, I guess, one of the big things with Good Fat Life. Oh, yep, Good Fat Life, our magazine. You can go to Good Fat Life and check it out. We do 4 issues a year. And we have all kinds of stuff on the website. And we're just launching a web store, which is very cool, so that we get to share those really cool products and services that people provide with our readers. So anyway, but that's one of the things that's really important, and actually kind of the genesis for Good Fat Life is to provide a platform, right, for people to know about things they might not have known about. In a way that's not, like you said, it's like, we're never going to tell you what's right for you. All we're going to do is say, here are these options and you get to choose.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, who knew?
Yeah. It's just, I think I was talking this morning at coffee, and I said, that's like the beautiful thing, like education. Nobody can take education and knowledge away from you, but if you have that knowledge, you just feel empowered because now you get to be the creator of like your path if you choose.
Right. Well, and you get to choose your path, which is so stinking cool.
Yeah, because you can go this way or that way, or you can like double back around. I mean, I think it's awesome.
Right. And so I love that because like I said, we just want to provide options for people to choose, like this beautiful buffet. So you found from personal experience with your background, it's kind of like you got to converge between what you love to do professionally with what you love to do personally, right?
Yeah.
And
I love what I do.
yeah. So tell me, I know you just got the keys to your space. So tell me about it. It's a clinic?
Yeah. Yep. So it's my very own clinic. So I got the keys to the space. So today we're going to do move-in. So we repainted, cleaned the carpet. I realized I am not a painter. I am a physical therapist. So I will, Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I will be sticking to my day job. But being able to have my very own space to focus on essentially keeping runners running, keeping mom strong, and having that strength, power, and balance. So I will have my own space. Grand opening is to be determined, but it'll be within the next month or so. So it's right downtown Brighton.
That is so exciting. So this is is this the first time that you've had your own space?
Yes.
And so what was the tip for you to go from, have you worked in clinics before? I
Yes.
mean, obviously.
Yeah. So the corporate world, I mean, and it's one of those things that, reflecting back on time is I wouldn't be who I am today without being in that corporate setting because I learned from so many amazing, amazing people. And so the tipping point became having 4 children and wanting to be there for them and realizing that I didn't have the time flexibility. Like
Right.
I always had a very full schedule and I wanted to be able to adjust and be able to go on field trips or pick up the kids from school. And I didn't have that opportunity. And then in the pelvic health realm, I just need a bit more time to teach. And it's just not linear. Right? We don't say, in 5 days, you're going to feel 100% better. That's just not how it works. So I just want a bit more time.
So I love that. And that's one of the biggest, I mean, I think having your own company is a lot of work, right? Yes. I mean, it's insane because you have to, when you're first starting, you have to do everything.
Yes.
And lots of times you don't even know what those everythings are, right? Painting, right? So, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier. You get to make choices, right? So maybe you have to do your own social media for a while, I had to share a car with my husband for 3 years, and lots of things that you do. But at the end of the day, that's the coolest part is that you get to make your own hours, right? You get to decide how you want. You get to live. You get to create the life that you want to live.
Yeah, and that's been also it's been hard to adjust to having that.
Oh yeah,
because I said, now am I a shitty boss? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a boss that's poopy. So making sure that I am still allowing myself the life that I wanted, and not going back into no, I have to do this. It's like, no, you don't have to do that.
I had one very dear colleague that I adore. She has this wand, and she goes, Sherri, here's your permission. You can do what you want. It's not like because you get indoctrinated into that having a boss world. And I was in the corporate world for 30 years.
Yeah. And
while I'm so grateful for it because I learned so much that I never, ever would have learned had I not gone through that, right?
Absolutely.
But there's still things. It's like, this is how it has to be. Well, if my colleagues that have always been self-employed, they have no concept of that, right?
No.
And she's like, here, you're free. You can do what you want. And then she goes, here, take the wand so you can do it for yourself. And it was so eye-opening. It's like, yeah.
Well, and if you talk to my husband, I like to reflect and make sure it's like the right decision, right? And there's necessarily a wrong decision, but it was this past week has been, okay, you get to make that decision. I said, well, I need a soundboard. He said, okay, go ahead. He's like, but you still have to make the decision. I was like, I don't want to make any more decisions right now. I'm decision out. He's like, no, you can do this. And even something as simple as like going out to eat. I said, let's go out to eat. He said, well, where are we going to go? I said, I don't know. You pick. He's like, no, you can make that decision. I said, all right.
It is. I mean, I have found myself saying, I'm out of capacity. I'm just capacitied out. Right? I don't have any more.
Yeah.
And maybe for some things, but not for other things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's
It
just
is.
part of it. Okay. So you have your space, and when will you be officially starting to see patients?
Yeah. So essentially I have my inspection scheduled on Thursday.
Okay.
So that gives the green light. So it'll be a soft opening. So we'll see if everything goes according to plan. We should be ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Okay. So we're on new business launch eve here.
Yes, we are. It's like Eve because today's Tuesday.
Yeah. What's your dream?
Yeah, my dream. Oh boy. So my head has been in the clouds, which is beautiful, right? Is to have this space where individuals can feel supported and meet the goals that they have. So whether that's to stay running pain-free, or maybe they want to be more efficient, that they can do that. If they are prenatal, postpartum, and they want to get back to running and they feel like they just can't, that's my goal. But the other piece of my goal is to be able to educate people and be able to tell them, hey, listen, there's a lot of information out there and it's not always right for you. So let's figure out what's right for you to meet your goals and make sure it's individualized that, okay, so this might work for you, but then it may not serve you to your fullest capacity. And so making sure that people can feel supported and make sure they're empowered and they have that knowledge so they can live like the good fat life.
There you go. That's right. So if somebody's listening to this, right? What question would they ask, or why would they say, oh, she's who I've been needing to see, or I didn't even know I needed to go see her. Yeah. But what would that look like?
Sure. So that's the beautiful thing about being a traditional like physical therapist is I have that orthopedic background. So your basic ankle, knee, hip, back, neck, shoulder pains. I'm trained to do all of that, but I also have the pelvic health piece. So that allows me to have that little bit of insight to a spot that nobody is able to see, right? So if somebody's standing completely closed, we can't say, I think that pelvic floor, I mean, there's some indicators, but we have the opportunity to take a look at, okay, well, how is everything influencing one piece or another? So for instance, the most common is like back pain. So somebody could see a PT, a traditional PT, and their back pain just doesn't really get much better. Or they have hip pain. Again, just it gets kind of better, but not quite. So then we see a pelvic floor PT, still have that same orthopedic background, but then they can take a look and see, well, how do we balance this system and make sure that they're in this most optimal position to make sure that they can do what they want to do. So that's the piece that we can see is like back pain, hip pain. It's like, oh, darn it. That's me. Like I have back pain, I have hip pain, but nobody's necessarily looked a bit deeper of how everything's interconnected. And then most certainly your traditional pelvic health considerations that, again, we're starting to talk more about, but we still don't know that there's those pelvic floor therapists that exist that want to help everybody.
Right. Oh, I love your enthusiasm. It's just so infectious. But so how would that maybe be different than what a chiropractor does?
Sure. Yeah. So we're going to, and depending on the scope of chiropractic care, right? So that's the cool thing about all of us working together as a team is I don't do any type of manipulation. So I will gladly mark on somebody's back with a little pen, hey, I can't get that segment to move. Can you go see your chiropractor? Some chiropractors will do corrective exercises. Most chiropractors won't are not trained to do pelvic health. And I think it depends on the scope, and I could be wrong. So I apologize, chiropractors who are listening. But their scope of practice in that state, if they're able to do any type of pelvic floor assessment, which can be internal. So that'll be similar to a pelvic exam you see your gynecologist or your primary care physician who's ever doing that, and being able to see, okay, yep, let's take a look at the muscles. Let's see the structures. Let's see coordination. Let's see strength. So I have that insight if a patient is ready to kind of go that route. But we can all still work together.
Yeah, which is cool. And I mean, that to me also is one of the things I love so much about Good Fat Life is you just meet so many people that are part of a team. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, even like with finance or just even doing a magazine, right? A media, we probably have 35 people involved in any given issue. And I mean, that's a lot of people. Yeah. But that's what makes it cool.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody brings their own brilliance.
Yeah.
And
different lenses, right? So it's making sure that, because how I might look at something is that might be it. But then there might be just another perspective that maybe that jives a bit better. And it's like, sweet, like let's work together collaboratively. And I love collaboration because, again, what I see is different. And even from another PT, it's like, okay, well, this is what I think is going on. And this, we can try that. And it's like, oh, no, darn. Okay, that didn't, we're missing something. And so being able to ask or refer out, like, absolutely.
Right. No, I'm just thinking, and I'm just wondering, so what, as a person that is aging, I mean, how do things change in a sense where you would go, I wonder if this is just aging, or is this,
sure.
Is this, I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because depending on how active we are, that can most certainly impact how our body responds. So if we're speaking specific to pelvic health, so we think about all of our muscles in our body. And I think most of us can say like, oh yeah, look at, like, my muscles aren't as strong and robust as they used to be. And that's true. But same thing with our pelvic floor is that maybe those muscles aren't as strong and robust as they used to be. But has your life become maybe more sedentary? Or do you have pain because of an arthritic hip? And so we have to see that whatever our hip does, my pelvic floor is going to be influenced by. And so making sure that, okay, I have good, strong hips. As women, as we age, estrogen starts to decrease through menopause. And then we have the beautiful thing of like osteoporosis or osteopenia. So we want to make sure our bones are nice and strong. If we're able to load our bones, that makes us super strong and robust to help make our muscles strong and robust so that we have the support that we need through the system. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot of...
It does. It's just like my mind's going spinning. So anyways, just from all of those things, right? Yeah. When is it enough? When is it not enough? I mean, would it make sense to schedule a visit to just have an assessment?
Yeah.
To find out those things, because one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older is that you can think that you're fine. And so far I've been fine. But there's been a couple of times where I've pushed myself and I've had a muscle fail.
Sure.
Right? And it's like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? And then I've been told by my physical therapist or my Pilates instructors that it's a blessing that you had this because you can do something about it today. Mm-hmm. But it was on a path to fail 10 years from now and you couldn't come back.
Right. And it's always interesting too, because it's a lovely thing, especially as females, to be able to go in through like having menses and then being in perimenopause and menopause, because we can restart the clock to reassess, like, okay, what is going on? And so, yes, we can have that, I'll say, those muscles fail. And so, yes, to set up an appointment just to learn. My hope is to have workshops to just educate, because like I said, you have to, we just don't talk about enough. So, but to have strategies in place, because at the end of the day, I like to think of it this way, like our pelvic floor is our foundation. So it's like a house, right? You want to have this beautiful, strong foundation, because if you're going to build a house and you have like a crap foundation, the walls are probably going to crumble. And so that can be crumbly hips, that can be crumbly shoulders, that can be crumbly spine. And so we don't want that. We want that strong foundation that can be dynamic. And so if we have the dynamic foundation below, then we can do, the sky's the limit. We can do whatever we want, right? And so if we have that knowledge, we have those strategies in place for whatever it is. So for instance, like you said, you have grandchildren. And so we have that gap of time where, okay, I was in survival mode, taking care of my children, right? And then you're like, okay, I'm lifting them up. And so like the concept of like mom strength, right? You have to lift up a car seat with a human in it. That's pretty heavy. And then you have that break of time where you're just, okay, we're good. They're in school. Great. I can focus on my career. Now they're off in college. Oh, that's a little stressful. And then you're a grandmother, right? The beautifulest blessing in the world, right? It's a love that no other like love can have, right? That's what another patient had said. But now you have to lift up that child, and you're not used to lifting up that child. And now things change. And maybe the back's a little sore, and you're like, thank goodness I have a day off because my back is sore. Or I just feel lots of pressure, and I didn't think about that. So making sure, again, those transition times that like, wow, I can take care of I need to reassess this, and I need to have strategies in place so that I can be that grandmother that I want to be.
Oh, exactly. I mean, exactly. Just Thanksgiving. Come, Grandma, play with me. Let's build this fort. Let's build this house. And you're like, okay, good. Is there a place where I can sit on the floor and I can, get up easily and down? And it's like, okay. And they're popping up and down, Yeah. You're just like, okay, just give me a minute.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's the concept of like keeping mom strong. So, right. You're a mom forever. And so even it might be like you have a little added piece grandma or great grandma, but you still have to be strong to be able to enjoy those beautiful things of life, like grandchildren.
You do. No, you absolutely do. And like my husband is like always, let me get that. Let me get that. And I'm like, no, I have to do these things or I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
And he wants to, be a gentleman, which I really appreciate. But it's like, I got to do these things.
So there's this fun, I had this conversation with she was at a workshop that I was at, and she said after we had given our lecture, like topic, she said, I need to ask you a couple questions. I said, okay. She's like, so everything's been good. Everything has been great up until the past couple years. And I said, okay. And she said, so a couple years ago, my husband passed, and we had a really good sex life. And since that time, I've been widowed, and I've started to have more pelvic floor concerns of leaking and urgency and pressure. And the only thing I can think, like, I don't have a partner right now. And I thought, yeah, I mean, they're muscles that are exercised in that capacity, but we don't think of it like that, right? You use it or lose it. And so when we think about, and this is from another PT, so you think about an orgasm, right? If we have an orgasm, it can be a series of quick muscle contractions. And so if we think of it like that, instead of something that's like sensual and sexual, we think of muscle contractions. Okay, yeah, muscle contractions, my bicep contracts. Okay, cool. Then we can think, oh, okay, well, that's staying fit. So now we don't have to like look at the perspective of exploring sexuality as maybe like, shameful of one's own sexuality. We're just keeping muscles fit, right? So I know this took a little turn, but if we think of it like that, then it's like, okay, right on. Like, let's talk about how we can stay fit as we age, and maybe as we look at having some alone time. So I know this is a funny conversation, but it's important because sometimes we just need to know, right?
We do need to know, and we do need to know.
Yeah,
that's right. And the whole point is not to make decisions for people.
Correct.
To educate.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So on that happy note, so tell me, you have this beautiful piece of jewelry here. So tell me about that.
So this is how I came up with the name of my business. So it is an agate stone here. So, and I'm going to read the little note. So this is from a patient. So she said, I made this for you because an agate is one of the strongest stones on earth. You helped to make me so much stronger. Thank you so very much. And so she was one of the very first pelvic floor patients I had, and her history was complex. And I didn't realize how I could give something that just made so much sense to me. Well, of course, I'm going to make sure that you can lead the fullest life. But I wanted to have the ability to give other women the same power and balance. And if you look up, like, what does an agate stone, like, it's healing principles, and it provides healing and balance. And so that's the concept of my name is agate, and then core being your core foundation of your dynamic pelvic health, that strong dynamic stability, and therapy because of physical therapy. So that's how I came up with the name. Yeah. And so she's one of those, those stories that you always remember and you'll never, ever, ever forget.
Right. Oh, so every time you see it agate on your, yes, I love that. It just reminds you.
Yeah.
It becomes who you are.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So I love that. So if somebody wants to find you, how do they find you?
Yes. So I have an Instagram account. So I'm working on making sure that it's very presentable. But it is at dr.liesle, Liesle .Elsey, Elsey. And then also I have a website. So that's going to be my www.agatecoretherapy.com. And then also a Facebook page. Same thing. It's going to be Agate Core Therapy. So handful of ways.
Yeah, to get a hold of you. And so you'll be doing, and do you have to be in person to see you? Or to have if you're doing workshops, will they always be in person, or will anything people connect with you on Zoom or online?
Yeah, so both options. So I do have an option to do just a virtual consultation, just to see hey, what do I need to learn? For workshops, it can be a combination of both. I think being in person is also helpful because then I think it's important to experience, right? So being able, and also being a therapist, I learn, this is how I learn, by moving and feeling and experiencing. That's how I learn best. And so in person, if you can experience that, then you're like, oh, wow, that was, wow, okay, cool. And it just helps you understand, okay, this is what she's talking about.
Yeah, no, person is wonderful, but it doesn't always work, right?
Right.
So
sure.
It's nice to have the option.
Absolutely. Yes.
So good. Well, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of tired. I don't know why. I've just taken all this stuff in to process.
Yeah.
And good and inspired too. It's so what's the word? Not heartfelt. Important, maybe that's not even the right word. I'll find it. To know that you have all these things that are available to you, especially when you're younger, right? So that you're like, okay, yeah, this is important. This is important. This is important because it's just so easy to, like you say, you're just trying to get through the day when you're raising your kids. And I only had 2. I didn't have 4. So, but to be aware of, right? Yeah. Because it's easy to just put it aside. And I mean, I've got, my checkup and my teeth and all of that in December because it's like, oh, it's almost the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
And because the time flies so fast.
It does. And I think it's also just important just to be able to reflect. I mean, because you do have to do a lot of reflecting, how am I feeling today? Right. And going back to that example of a puppy dog, especially with the holidays coming up, is that we tend to be stressed and overwhelmed, and our pelvic floor is the poor bystander and just tightens up. And then now we may be a little bit more backed up, or we have some back pain and hip pain, and it's oh, well, it's because I'm running around. It's let's pause, reflect. Let's think about some of the things that we can do in that moment to help with that, so that we have that strategy to circle back around when we need it. And so again, I think the knowledge piece becomes super important, because at the end of the day, if a patient walks in and I give them these handful of things, they're still responsible for that body that they have. And it's their job to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to invest in myself because I'm important. I need it. I deserve it. I am designed to be a facilitator, right? And an educator to say, hey, these are things I want you to work on, and you can do this. And I'm here to help you with that.
But what I'm hearing so much is it starts with being aware. That just even being aware that maybe this hip pain or back pain isn't just normal. That you don't have to keep having that.
Correct. No, don't suffer. I mean, why? We have one life to live.
Right. And maybe it's just, it comes and goes or whatever, but it's just like, because it's our body. It's the only way that our body can communicate with us that, hey,
hello,
I'm here. Pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about pain is that it does say, hey, I need you to check in. I need you to check in, do like a systems check to see what's going on. Because if we didn't experience pain, like how would we survive? Right?
Right.
We would just crumble. Like we need to be able to experience pain to say, pause, reflect. Oh, I need to do this.
I need to do this, or I need to look at this, or pay attention. Yeah. So, okay. So lots to think about in the best of ways. So I want to just take a moment, and I think since we are talking health and bodies, that I will just piggyback on Dr. Rushford's office, Hands on Health. He is a chiropractor extraordinaire, and I could see where, having what you do as part of their team would be just another option to being your best self.
Yeah.
Right.
Living that good fat life.
Living that good fat life. Because I tell you, I always like to say, if it was down to one person on my planet that I could choose, it would be my chiropractor. Because he just makes me, having that care gives me the ability to live that good fat life. I just feel good.
Yeah.
And if you, and I always like to say when I walk in, even having a great day, I walk out feeling better than when I walked in because the staff is just so supportive and good at what they do. So check out Hands on Health Chiropractic in Brighton, Michigan. And check out Agate Core Therapy here in Brighton, Michigan as well. And Liesle Elsey.
Yes, Elsey.
Elsey. So, go and then also check out Good Fat Life, and then go out and live your good fat life. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.